Hi all, this is Mike from Wanderschikan TV, and recently I've been asked to comment on one of my VR videos on the channel from Assetto Corsa Competizione. The question was, how can I achieve on a RTX 3080 the nice quality of picture that you're showing on your videos? And today I would like to take the opportunity here to guide you through my setups. They're comprising the setups on the NVIDIA drivers, on the Open Composite, and on the OpenXR toolkit. And I hope I can show you within the video how you can achieve with rather mid-end graphic cards a very nice, fluent, functional, and very good looking experience within VR for Assetto Corsa Competizione. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And now have a lot of fun with walking through my settings. First of all, we will have a look at the NVIDIA drivers. So go to Desktop, Show More Options, and select the NVIDIA Control Panel. So it's opening up and we can have a look which driver version I have installed. So click to the Help menu, System Information. And as you can see, I'm here on the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 with the driver version 522.25. Let's have a look at the 3D settings. Make sure that you select Manage 3D settings here on the left-hand side. And then from Global Settings, we switch to Program Settings to look for the appropriate settings for Assetto Corsa Competizione. If it's not selected here, you can find it here in the list of drop-downs within the programs which are installed on your PC. The options are shown further down here. Many of them are still on the default mode here. But as you can see, here I changed Power Management mode to prefer maximum performance. As well as further down here, Virtual Reality pre-rendered frames to 3. After making the change, make sure that you push apply, and then we're ready with this item here. Next contributor is the engine ini file, which configures the graphical settings of the Unreal Engine to a certain extent. So here is my link to that file. It's on my local disk under Users, my username, app data, local, AC2, saved, config, Windows no editor. And here you can find this file. And I will copy the code which you need to enter into this file within the forum so that you can reproduce my settings here on your system as well easily. Let's now have a look at Open Composite. Open Composite can be downloaded on GitHub, and after installation, briefly check on the program. Let's open it. As you can see, the switch to Open Composite option is grayed out. This means I have switched it on and it's now activated. SteamVR will now be bypassed when starting the game in VR mode, and OpenXR will be used. This is exactly what we want to have. Besides that, you can also further modify Open Composite via the opencomposite.ini file. Here you can find a location. So you go to your local Assetto Corsa Competizione installation folder in Steams, then further down to Engine, Binaries, Third Party, OpenVR, OpenVR v1.5.17, Win64, and there either it's already visible or you create this opencomposite.ini file with Windows Editor. Let's have a look at it. It comprises the code hidden mesh vertical scale equals to 0.8. When you enter this code, make sure that the capital letters are respected, as they are important for correct interpretation of the code. This code means that 10% of the top of the VR picture and 10% of the bottom of the VR picture are subtracted and not displayed. This will not be visible in your VR headset. However, it will boost your performance since 20% less pixels need to be rendered. Last thing to do in Windows is to look at the VR settings.json file. It can be found under this PC, Documents, Assetto Corsa Competizione, Config, and can be opened with Windows Editor. Within that file, you're seeing the option Spectator Screen Mode with a number behind. There's two settings that are meaningful. Either you set it like I'm doing to 5. This means that the VR input will also be mirrored to your Pancake flat screen, so your TV or PC monitor, and is there available, for example, for recording videos with NVIDIA GeForce Experience, if you want to upload them at a later point of time to YouTube, for example. However, this option costs a few frames per second. Other alternative is to replace the 5 by a 0. This means that the mirroring to the flat screen will be fully switched off and you're gaining a few frames per second. So in the end, it's up to you what you want. When you don't want to save videos for YouTube, set it to 0 and be happy with a few more frames. Otherwise, leave it at 5 and record your screen content. So our next section of our video relates to the configuration of the OpenXR toolkit itself. I'm using here the latest version, 1.2.2. And first thing we do once we tapped into the configuration by pressing Ctrl F2 in-game is to go to the menu and activate the Show Expert Settings option by setting it to yes. So this one is really important as it allows us to get full access to all the configuration options within OpenXR Toolkit. Afterwards, we move over to the Performance tab. And there, first item to activate is the overlay. Set it to FPS so that you will get a monitoring of your frames per second. I have to say, don't get too much triggered by the value there. You see it's 90.0 on the menu situation here. With my settings, you probably will not be getting the 90 frames per second on a HP Reverb G2 all the time. However, you will get all the time a fluent experience, and that's actually what we are targeting for. Very nice thing about the latest version of OpenXR Toolkit is the new upscaling function, the CAS. It's very good game changer with respect to clarity, and I definitely recommend to use it together with the sharpness option. As for optimizing frame per seconds, we will now be working with the next section of fixed foveated rendering, FFR, and we will be using a custom configuration here. The inner ring of 55% with the full resolution, a middle resolution of 1/4, and at 80% outer ring size, and last but not least, the outer resolution of 1/8, together with a preference of vertical resolution here. So we will not be using perfect rings. So this is why we are modifying the horizontal scale to 150%. Basically, it will stretch the rings to horizontally stretched ellipses. And this means that we will make use of giving the highest resolution to the area of the ring screen in our car in ACC. And that's why we're using this 150% scale here. Horizontal offset of the center of the rings we leave at 0% since we're looking straight out of our cockpit in the car. However, we're shifting the vertical offset up by plus 15% so that the center of the high resolution rings is where we are looking out of the window of the car in the cockpit and not so much focused on the dashboard. Basically, what we want to achieve is that we want to have a close and clear view of the outside world of ACC. And that's reached by shifting the vertical offset to those plus 15%. I'm using the experimental turbo mode on, otherwise I leave everything towards off. No changes from defaults on the Appearance tab. Same thing here on the Inputs tab, also using default. But last but not least, we'll be doing some modifications on the System tab here. We stay with the default resolution, so no override activated. Motion reprojection will also stay at default. Color gains, I'm adding a tiny bit of blue here for the according to my liking of colors. And again, we will be working on the field of view. Set it to advanced. We're cropping off the up and the downside of the picture. So similarly to what we did in the Open Composite INI, cropping off 10% on top, cropping off 10% at the bottom of the picture. We will not be noticing that anyhow. And the same you can do also on the left sides and the right sides of the picture. For me personally, I cannot perceive the cropping of these 10% on either side of the picture, and it will give us some performance gain here. So those are the settings within the OpenXR toolkit, and next section we will move on to the in-game settings of ACC. Finally, let's have a look at the video settings within ACC. So here are my settings. First of all, I mentioned it before, I'm using the pancake screen also for the recording of videos. So that's why I configured here this first section to match my pancake screen. It's a full HD screen. I set it to full screen mode, and that works really well when using GeForce Experience from NVIDIA for recording of the content. As for the actual settings related to VR, let's walk first of all through the basic section. Resolution scale, I set it here to 90%. That's what I'm using when I'm not having FSR enabled. However, since later on we will see that I'm using FSR, this option is grayed out here. I'm using a view distance of high, which gives a nice pleasant visual experience, together with shadows in epic and shadows distance in low. Contact shadows are disabled. So this may sound like quite a bit of a frames per second eater. However, due to the low shadow distance, it's not that bad at all. And the combination of epic shadows with the absence of contact shadows makes sure that it does not look like the cars are floating above the track, and I think that is really important for good visual immersion into VR. Based on our OpenXR toolkit settings, it's not necessary to have anti-aliasing activated within ACC, so you can turn it off here. Anti-aliasing type and TAA Gen 5 actually don't matter, you can just leave them on temporal and disabled. DLSS I don't use, despite having a NVIDIA graphic card. I made here better experience with FSR enabled at ultra quality, together with a sharpness of 100%. Let's follow up then on the effects and the post-processing. All of them I turned to low. It's okay within VR. If you have a better graphic card than a 3080, then you can tweak around with those with higher values for even nicer visuals. But for 3080, low works well for effects, post-processing, foliage and texture. Now let's come to the mirror. Mirror, this is something where I put a bit of effort into, because I don't want to have a blurry mirror on the dashboard or review cam on the dashboard. So that's why I set mirror quality to epic with a view distance of 150 meters. Frame rate limit is off, mirror resolution is high. Last but not least, opponent's visibility. It's often discussed as a very big performance eater. However, with my settings, it's working really well for a grid of 20 cars to have all opponents visible together. So this is also quite a nice thing for visual immersion, as it avoids cars popping in and out of view, specifically in the start scene when the grid is still close together. Virtual reality. I'm recording this video here now on the flat screen, so that's why I cannot modify it and why it's showing 100% here. Actually, to achieve the best visual performance on the RTX 3080, I set it in VR to 120%, and for sure if you are on 3080 Ti, 3090, 3090 Ti or even 4090 new graphic cards, you can push that value, and I feel that this is the most important one to get a high picture clarity within VR. Let's move forward to advanced. Materials quality works well for me in mid. Temporal upsampling is enabled. Bloom quality I set to very low to have at least the nice impression of headlights and brake lights in night driving. Volumetric fog, I need to keep it at disabled on 3080. It's a high performance eater, but with better graphic cards you can clearly give it a try and turn it to higher values. Foliage LOD I keep to low. Car LOD quality I keep to 100% because basically the cars are the stars in a racing game. H-Lot stays enabled and advanced sharpen filter stays disabled. Finally, coming to image customization, motion blurs I leave disabled. I don't like this blurriness induced by that functionality. Saturation I turn down to 90%. It takes away this cartoon-like colors in the image. So the desaturated image by 90% strongly contributes to immersion for me. White balance stays on neutral, sharpness on 80%, camera dirt effect on 3.0, image contrast on 0.65, exposure gain 0.4, and tone mapping on default. HDR finally does not play a role for VR. With that, let's have a final look at the result with a race in Zandvoort. I hope you liked walking together with me through my settings and you can now enjoy the results on your own PC. So thanks for your attention and see you on track.
Alright Mike, get ready.
Car on your right.
Go!
Still side by side. You're in the middle of 3 wide. Clear on your left. 3 wide. You're in the middle. Clear right. Left side. Still there. Clear. Both sides. Car left. Hold your line. He's still there. Still there. Hold your line. Still there. Clear left.
Keep it nice and smooth. Come on, let the race come to us.
Left side. Still side by side. Clear on your left.
1:37.
On your left. Clear left. Car on your left side. You're clear left.
That's a new fastest lap for Marciello, 1:37.77. 15 minutes left.